All right, howdy, y'all. Welcome to the Confessing Baptist Dunker Bunker Headlines Edition. Today is Saturday, May 10th, to weekly audio source for all things 1689. I'm one of your co-hosts here, Jason Elgato, and joining me today is...
Hey everyone, it's Javi.
Yep, and as far as we know, we're the only two. We know Junior's, he has his monthly men's study thing at his church, and we don't know where the other two guys are, so just going to be us today. And I also broke the my sound stuff, so... yeah, I broke my sound stuff, so I don't know what to do about that. So that's why you're not hearing any sound on the video part. Let me try to adjust my volume. I might be a little too loud. But I'll add it in later on the actual podcast part. So, all right. Well, anyways, we are just going to start because there's only two of us. So let's just get on. We're going to begin with, usually we begin with events. There were no events posted this week that we knew about. So if you guys know of any that you think would fit the scope of our site, let us know. Email us. You can go to our contact page. Real easy to contact us in a bazillion ways. So we're in most of social media that's out there. So I guess I can't say most because there's so many more now. But anyways, starting off with news, that Logos Baptist Covenant Theology Collection that we've been talking about for months and months, it did finally make it. We were guaranteed there would not be any more glitches. There weren't. It almost got down to $16, but I was still excited. It got down to $18. And so if you didn't bid on it, but before yesterday at, I think it was like 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 12 Pacific Standard Time, and you missed out on a great deal because it was only $18 at that point, and at that point it's for sure now in production. So they were working on it. Even one of the guys from Logos who helped start this project, he said, yeah, they've already sent me files to start working on because there were some pages hard to clean up. So it is now official. It's going to be a couple months. They estimate about 2 months usually to get this kind of stuff out, depending on how clean the original, not autographs, but the I guess whatever scans they have of it, how easy it is to transcribe. But it did go up now to $99. That's the pre-production cost, and after it's actually in production, it's going to go up again to $169. So you can still get it for cheaper, but I hope you got it in when it was like only $18 because that's a killer deal. You're basically paying $1.10 for a book, so because it's 17 volumes. So, but anyways. That's really all the news there was. So other news is just more book news. So Javi, you want to tell us about what a new book that got reprinted?
Sure. What was that? Bill Payne's What is the Reformed Baptist Church is back in print by Solid Ground Books, and there's an English and Spanish PDF along with, on our site actually, a review by Tom Chantry. When we posted the link to the book, Tom Chantry commented with a brief review showing its importance and when it was written and why it's still relevant today. So it's pretty cool if you want to get that out. If you want to get that, and then obviously the PDF. Now the PDFs are free, right?
Yes. The PDFs are free. All the ARPCA booklets you can get on PDF, so you can see them, you can read them. So obviously, their point is they hope that you would buy the little booklets to like pass out at churches and stuff.
Nice.
So if you just want to check it out, you can check it out. And yeah, they also have the PDF in Spanish as well, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that'll make it easier for Junior to read. No, I'm kidding.
That's funny. Yeah, I thought it was interesting that Tom Chantry is pointing out how, like you said, the relevance back in the day when he wrote it, because Pastor Bill Paynes, he died in '97, so this was written before then. Obviously, I couldn't find an exact date when it was written. But he was saying some of the same stuff that we're still dealing with, like New Covenant theology, what's the Lord's Day, this and that, the kind of FYIs, the first things that people ask about Reformed Baptists, like cessationism, I think was one of them. He deals with in this book, and that's still stuff we deal with all the time when people come into a Reformed Baptist church or a new one on our site, asking a lot of those same questions. So I think Tom even said that their church had ordered 100 of these to pass out to new visitors and things like that. So he said that's a really good resource, and he totally convinced me with his little review of how good it was. I was like, oh wow, I never considered these things. So yeah, his review was very good and helpful. So
yeah, because he provided a little context for the book. The titles and stuff of the book. So
right, yeah, it's pretty interesting, very good stuff. So, but another new, well, that was it's just back in print, but this is a new book. It's actually been out for a little bit, but it was only available to those who had. I remember a while back we told you about that documentary to be worked on. What was it called? Through the Eyes of Spurgeon, that Stephen McCassell was working on. He's an admin on one of the famous Spurgeon pages out there, and he's put out some Spurgeon quote books before. This book was Spurgeon's Calvinism, and they made it available as of yesterday, and it is authored by Charles Spurgeon. It's edited by Stephen himself, and Conrad Bayway actually provides a forward for it. So it's on Kindle for $5.99. You can buy it in book form for $12.95. So the quick little description he gave in the book was: the debate over Charles Spurgeon's views of Calvinism starts almost every time his name is dropped. I frequently come across people that have misunderstood Spurgeon and the gospel he preached. The gospel and Calvinism were not separate to him. They were one. And then he quotes Spurgeon here: Calvinism is the gospel and nothing else, end quote. This volume looks at this area more in depth in order to clear up misunderstandings of this aspect of Spurgeon's theology. Man, sorry, I'm talking too fast, I think, so I'm stuttering and slipping over my words. Anyways, using Spurgeon's short booklet, A Defense of Calvinism, and several of his sermons, I put together Spurgeon's Calvinism. So that's the book. It was available to those who helped fund the documentary, which that documentary that he's recording, once that's done, he's going to make that available on YouTube for free. So it's not like you have to buy it, it's on DVD only. It was just to help fund this. And so if you help fund that, however much you gave, people already had that book for a couple months, but now it's available to the public. So that's really all there is about that book. But we do have some more book news.
Sweet. On his blog, Tom Chantry, what is it? Chantry Notes, right?
Yeah.
Tom Chantry's begun a small series of short posts which attempt to give a response to some criticisms being leveled against his and David Dykstra's yet-to-be-published book. For those of you that don't know, the book is called Holding Communion Together, and it's been plagued with criticism ever since the inception of what started out as a blog series, soon to be book, and he actually has made four posts answering objections by, I guess there's no other real way to put it, but the Montville camp is what he calls them on the post. So I think they're helpful. We're actually mentioned on there once, which is funny. So yeah, if you guys, I think you'll benefit from reading the history. I think he provides some good reasoning on those posts for publishing the history, and he does sort of respond to some of the other blog posts that have been floating out there regarding the tactics or regarding what they've done. So you guys check those out. I think you'll find them useful, at least if not edifying, at least just to know.
The more you know.
So.
All right. Yep. So with that really was all the book stuff. So moving on to the kind of audio and video stuff we posted this week. Open up the week with posting the Muslim-Christian dialogue, How Can We Find Forgiveness from a Holy God? And that was 8 different videos featuring Shabir Ali, which if you're familiar with James White at all, you know James White's debated him several times, and those are always really good debates. And except this was not with James White, though. It was Shabir Ali and Tabidi Anabwili. And it was more framed as a dialogue, not really a formal debate, even though it was timed and they had sections and they talked back and forth. The little parts I saw of it, I didn't see the whole thing, but it looked really good. Tabidi, when we interviewed him, he told us about his past growing up as a Muslim, right?
Right. Yeah, he was a Muslim. Yeah,
and he's also written a book. I believe it's called The Gospel for Muslims. I could be wrong about that. I think that's the title of the book. It's like the description of the book was in the title, so I'm pretty sure that was the title of the book. But he's also written on it, so he's more than able to talk with a guy like Shabir Ali on that. And I heard it went really good. And some of the clips I saw, he was explaining how our God provides forgiveness of sins and how we can have assurance. And he was basically just preaching the gospel to them. It was really good work. And he wasn't just preaching the gospel to them; he was also interacting with them and answering their questions, their objections. So really good. I haven't seen it all though, so I can't really speak to it. But it's made available now. It took place last year. But they put out all the video, and the video is very well professionally done. It's not just like one camera in the back of a room. There's several different cameras, great angles, great lighting. So really good resource out there. So
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard it. I know Shabir Ali is a um, very good debater. He's debated
Oh yeah.
lots of Christians. He's debated James White. He's debated William Lane Craig. He's debated um, some Arminians out there, and so I mean, I can only imagine what the state of the Arminian was after the debate.
Right.
I mean, he's pretty good at what he does. So I'm sure that was a good debate. This week's interview, though, we had Sam Waldron on the Midwest Center for Theological Studies. And we talked about, he's the academic dean at MCTS in Owensboro, Kentucky. We learned all about him on interview 14 of our podcast, so we jumped straight into learning about MCTS and what they have to offer. So if you guys are looking for somewhere to study or to further your theological knowledge, make sure and check that out.
Yep. And let's see, what else do we got here? That was really all the audio and video we posted this week. So moving on to some of the blog posts that we highlighted. The first one was Baptism and Covenant Theology by Walt Chantry, and that was pretty interesting because he dealt with a lot of the New Testament texts that cited support for infant baptism, and Walt Chantry on that wrote, quote, "Every New Testament text cited to support infant baptism appears empty apart from a strong predisposition to find such texts and presuppositions to impose upon them. With such appalling lack of New Testament evidence for infant baptism, those who support such a practice have rapidly retreated to Old Testament texts and an argument from the unity of the covenants." So it's interesting because before that point, before that last sentence, he deals with some of the verses like, well, Acts 2, the promise is for us and our children. And he's like, well, let's finish the verse and then try to apply that and see if it works. And obviously it doesn't, for all those who are far off. He also deals with the children being made holy by the one believing spouse, and he tries to apply that to the rest of the family and other things like that, and it doesn't. He just shows how they fall apart very basically, and he even quotes some Paedo-Baptists, like I think he even quotes B.B. Warfield admitting, yeah, we shouldn't be using New Testament text to try to support our views because it doesn't work. And so he says, well, hence they go to covenant theology, which is what their argument's rooted in, and so he deals with it on a covenant theology level. So a lot of people had chimed in and said that it was really good, helpful stuff. They really enjoyed it. We got most of those comments on our Facebook page, so that's a really good resource. So check that out. It's I think it was like a 14-minute article or something of reading time. So not too in depth, but really hit a lot of the surface level arguments, and a lot of people found it helpful. So I want to check that out.
Yeah, I did, and I thought it was really helpful and useful.
Well, there you go. Proof's in the pudding.
And other people did too in the comments on Facebook. So
there you go. So strictly speaking, by anecdotal evidence, it's a winner.
How much does your church give is an article written by James Renahan, pastor, or Jim, as he prefers to be called. You know what's funny is you guys always made fun of me for calling him Jim.
But he prefers that.
Yeah, when he went to our church, Jay was like, he prefers to be called Jim, which I thought was pretty funny.
I still can't bring myself to call him that, though. I was raised, like, even if an adult told you, like, oh, just call me Joe Billy Job or whatever.
Sir.
Like, yeah, my dad was like, no, you say sir and his last name. So to me, it's always Dr. Renahan.
Yeah. No, I mean, either way, when I met him, I was kind of like, okay, well, I guess I can't. You call him Jim. It's just weird. But the article we posted is called "How Does Your Church Give?" It says, "Pastors, do you encourage your men to consider the gospel ministry? Do you spend personal time with them and encourage them to pray about this? Do your elders likewise seek to press this matter upon your young men? Do they urge these men to consider the possibility of Christ's call? And what about your people? Do they esteem ministers? Will they rejoice when one of their own gives himself to serve the Lord in ministry? I'm convinced that our churches must place a higher priority on cultivating men for service in the church." And so it's an article on that. So I think, everyone check that out, just like with everything else that we say.
Right, yeah. No, it was pretty interesting. Well, yeah, and also people should know that everything we highlight here isn't everything we posted. We just try to bring out a little bit of highlights. But that was a pretty interesting article because that came out on the ARBCA website, and he says, oh, the churches in ARBCA, they give a lot to missions and to our special projects and the funding of the schools and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And so when I first read the title, I was just assuming he was talking about offering or something like that. But yeah, it was really about pastors giving themselves to train up the next generation. and they were hard for that. So it was pretty interesting because he gave a lot of his growing up, I guess, story to, and then he also gave some other points of encouraging that. So yeah, great post. But yeah, you know what, Javi, you should probably actually even mention the other post because you posted the next one.
Oh yeah. So I found this. I was, I guess, internet creeping the other day.
Creeper, straight creeper.
Yeah, and I found a blog, Hope Reformed Baptist Church in Chicago, which is surprising. Um, and this pastor, John Yoder, the title of the article is "Public Worship Preferred Before Private Worship." Well, let me just read a piece of it. It says, do you prefer private or public worship? If you had a choice between private Bible reading and prayer or going to the corporate worship of the church, which would you choose? Which is more important, private worship in your home or gathering with the church in worship? Though many today would prefer to worship as an individual or in a family, the Bible teaches a priority of the public worship of the church. This truth is implied in our confession. But God is, quote, but God is to be worshipped everywhere in spirit and in truth, as in private families, daily, and in secret, each one by himself, so more solemnly in public assemblies, which are not carelessly nor willfully to be neglected or forsaken, when God by his word or providence calleth thereto, end quote. And that's obviously chapter 22, section 6. On this subject, David Clark, well, and then he goes on to quote a congregationalist from colleague of John Owen, I don't know if he's a Congregationalist, who preached a sermon that's actually entitled Public Worship to be Preferred Before Private. And he gives you reasons to prefer the public worship of the church, which is something that I've always thought was biblical and and helpful. I think we're primarily called to worship publicly and then secondarily privately in the home. So I really enjoyed that article, so I posted it up there.
Yeah, that is a helpful distinction, especially in our day, because when people, they'll wake up Sunday morning and they'll just be like, well, I'll just have. I mean, I don't know how many people I've seen on Sundays. Like if I'm checking Facebook later in the week, and they're like, oh, well, Sunday I woke up and I just turned on Joel Osteen and had my own private worship service, and it was that's my kind of church. I was in my pajamas on the couch, just like, oh man, you totally missed it. I mean, and obviously back then they weren't dealing with that context, but yeah, and I mean, and as one guy pointed out in the comments, we shouldn't make it an either or. It's not. He's like, and he's not. He's just probing and asking you, like, which would you prefer if you had to make the choice? It should be public because that's the priority that the Bible itself gives over. Obviously, they both affect each other, right? The public worship is going to affect our private worship, and our private worship is even going to affect our public worship, because I mean, the preacher talks a lot about that, about preparing for public worship and things like that. So,
right.
Yeah. So yeah, great stuff. Very helpful stuff. So, anyways, moving on to Ask a Reformed Baptist section. Today we had, well, it was actually, I don't know. Well, Junior puts all our stuff together, like for this Saturday thing. So sometimes I don't know why he puts it in the certain sections. But I guess the question was, what about Donald Sterling, that NBA controversy, which happened a couple weeks ago, which everyone at my workplace was going nuts over, and they were all just like, as open and as free as they are, and even in conservative Texas, they're like, don't judge anybody, this and that. When it came to Donald Sterling, it was hang the man, kill him. I mean, my coworkers were saying some crazy foul stuff. Like I was like, wow, if he would have said some of the stuff you guys just said in an NBA setting, you would have been in trouble too, But anyways, this was all private conversation anyways. But anyways, Voddie Baucham brings out all the inconsistencies and just the twisted logic that was used to get Donald Sterling. It's very fascinating. It wasn't what I expected. It was really good. It's a very good listen. I think it's like 40 minutes or so. It's a very good listen on just what Dr. Voddie Baucham is really good at, which his next book is coming out about cultural apologetics and things like that. And he, he's a presuppositionalist, so he was getting down to the root of how can they even condemn this man if they have all these other standards, and if they condemn him, then there's 99% of the other people on the NBA that they need to deal with if they're going to start holding them to these standards. And he was just pointing out the crazy inconsistencies. So, yeah, one small quote that I took from it. Voddie Baucham said, I think a lot of people have bore false witness on this. We have a culture that says, on every other issue, don't judge me. Now all of a sudden we have a standard. So really, really good audio. So as we've been saying on everything we say, check it out.
I know. That's funny, dude. From the Baptibot, Dr. Tom Nettles wrote a blog post on Fuller and the Atonement, Part 1. And if you don't know, he's been going through the theology of Andrew Fuller and sort of responding to the quote-unquote traditionalist Baptists in the Southern Baptist Convention. And so there are several others. This is the 4th post in a series of Andrew Fuller's theology. The others are Fuller the Non-Calvinist, Fullerite Doctrine of Inability, Fuller and Irresistible Grace, and then Fuller and the Atonement Part 2. And so actually it's a 5-part series. And
he's still going. He's only on Limited Atonement right now.
And there's also a reply to Ken Hamrick on ability, will, and necessity. So this is at the Founders blog, and if you don't know, every once in a while, like the Caners and their cohorts decide to just start a fire with some ridiculous statement that they make, and then they
rewrite history.
I guess not. Yeah, I mean they say things that don't seem to make sense, and so you have people who have to correct them, and it's someone told me it's amateur. I want to make sure and quote him right. He said it's amateur at worst. No, it's amateur at best. I don't remember.
Probably.
Yeah, probably, and then notorious at worst. And basically saying, they know what they're doing, just they have an agenda to push, and so they do it. But yeah, that's a good. I found it helpful. Again, I never really thought there was much controversy around Andrew Fuller, so the fact that there is makes you want to just sort of read more about him.
Yeah, and you had posted when some of this started up, because other guys had chimed on this, Askell and Ian Clary and Dr. Haken as well, and you rounded all those up, and we have been keeping that post updated with all these that come out. We just been adding the links onto it, so there's that one stop you can go to see all these. It's on our homepage. It's even featured. It's up there. So, yep. We also got wind from the Baptibot on the lectures. We told you already about the Southern California Reformed Baptist Pastors Conference, which is the longest conference name in the world. scrbpc.org. And we got wind of what Dr. Renahan's and Dr. Barcelo's lectures are going to be. The main speaker is going to be Carl Truman, talking about the Word. These other two guest lectures, Dr. Renahan will be lecturing on moral law and positive law in Scripture. He will provide exposition of key passages demonstrating how these two aspects of law function in Christian doctrine. That's going to be really good, because I still talk to guys today who are they're already convinced Sabbatarians, or Lord's Day Sabbatarians, Christian Sabbath, however you want to say it. And they still struggle with some of the applications of it, or some of the texts that deal with it. And this understanding, and I always point them to moral law and positive law, and how positive law works, because that is extremely helpful distinction. It helped me a whole ton when I was studying out the issue for myself, and really helpful stuff. So I look forward to that. Dr. Barcelos will be lecturing on hermeneutics and the formulation of the doctrine of the covenant of works. He will discuss some hermeneutical principles of 17th century federal theology, and how the doctrine of the covenant of works was formulated utilizing those principles. So if those guys only have an hour to do that, man, they're going to have to pack it in, because you could have a whole class on that topic. So so good stuff. Man, I really look forward to Dr. Renahan's hearing a one succinct message on moral law and positive law, because usually what I find about it, it's in a lot of stuff. I haven't really seen anyone whittle it down and just give a precise presentation. So that should be very helpful.
Definitely. And what about our giveaways?
Oh yeah. So with that, giveaways. Well, first there were several giveaways, and I wanted to point out some of this. I know some people just because I've talked to some pastors that they say they just listen to this part to get all the highlights and stuff. Unfortunately, because of that, you miss some giveaways. So I would encourage you to at least get our daily email. It's just an email that goes out once a day. It's all the posts we did, and it just gives if you want to just look at the top of it, it just gives the headlines for each one. Because sometimes we put out giveaways that are out there that are already over. So someone gave away 8 books by Jeremy Walker, and that was just a one-day thing. It was gone. Another guy, this guy gives out books a lot. His name's Rick. He gives these out on Twitter and Facebook. He gave out Call the Sabbath at a Light by Walter Chantry. And again, that was just a one-day thing. He was like, happy Monday, private message me if you want to win a copy of Walter Chantry's Call the Sabbath at a Light. And then later on in the day, he's like, this guy won it. And I mean, he almost gives a book away at least once a week, and it's almost always something Reformed Baptist specific, either by Reformed Baptist pastor or something very relevant, if not. But his Twitter handle is at CBNRCK. I'll post it up on this post as well. So you definitely want to follow him. I try to retweet his messages so that people can at least know. So if you follow our Twitter, you can get that too. But there is one giveaway that's still available, and today's the last day to get in on it. It is one that Reformation Heritage Books is doing. It is entering to win one of 5 sets of the Recovering the Gospel series. That's 3 volumes, that Paul Washer trilogy he recently finished up. So today's your last day to win that. I'll link up to that as well. Our giveaway did end, and our winners were Kenneth C., Brandon H., Samuel B., Richard B., and Filippo F. So I got all their addresses, and I'll probably send out the books later today whenever I get around to going to the post office. So I finally got everyone's emails back, or their addresses and what books they wanted. So everyone is real excited. So I mean, who's not about winning books? So
congratulations, y'all.
So congratulations, y'all. Besides that, I do try to also say some of the Twitter stuff we highlighted. I already told you about that one giveaway. You want to follow that guy because he just does that one, for one day. There's other Twitter news. Oh yeah, here we go. Tom Nettles. This was interesting. I didn't know this. Tom Nettles gave his last lecture of his last full semester. And someone had posted on Twitter who was in his class, rejoicing in his faithful kingdom and whatnot, and some of the other guys at Southern were just saying how much they loved him, and I have no idea what he's going to be doing next, so I hope it's writing more books or something like that, but I guess he's done teaching, which I was pretty shocked about.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, I have no idea why, so... Also in other Twitter news, it looked like Steve Weaver informed Albert Mohler of Hercules Collins, because yesterday Al Mohler went on he probably tweeted out 5, 6, 7 messages about Hercules Collins, like, oh man, I just read his devotion to the temple service or whatever the title is last night for devotional reading, and man, Hercules Collins was a great Baptist man. And he's just explaining how he was a force in 17th century Baptist life. It sounded like Al Mohler had never heard of him or knew about him, and then he eventually tweeted out, an Orthodox Catechism by Hercules Collins is something you should know about, written in 1680, and here's a new edition now, and he linked to the Amazon page to get the book. So I was excited because Al Mohler hits a much wider audience of Baptist than any of us ever could. So I was really excited for that.
Yeah.
Yep. That's how it all begins. That's how our agenda begins, giving the Reformed Baptist resources to the general Baptists out there. But,
that's funny.
Yeah. But that's really it. No, do you have anything else, Javi?
No, that's it.
That's it. Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we'll just say bye. Have a good Lord's Day tomorrow. And oh yeah, also we don't have a podcast for Tuesday, so I don't know if I'll get one Monday or not. If not, we just won't have one. So it doesn't bother me at all.
Time for reruns.
Time for some reruns. Oh, that might be a good idea. I have been wanting to redo, because our old podcast, we put in everything. It was an intro, the interview, then we would sometimes have an Ask Reformed Baptist segment, then we would have our news portion of this. So they'd be like an hour and a half on average or more.
Right.
And for a resource, because some people now because obviously some of this news is irrelevant after several months or even a week, like it doesn't matter. And so for people to use the interviews as a resource, I've been wanting to clip them and just be like, oh, here's episodes 2 and 3 of Pascal Deneau put together, just the interview portion. Here it is, and clean it up a little bit too, because I need some cleaning up. I might do that.
There you go.
Whenever we run out of episodes like this time. I mean, we have a lot in the queue planned. We just haven't got around to recording them, or we're waiting on replies, or a guy like me, I have to come up with questions for the people to interview, and we just need to plan it. So just been a busy week. So
absolutely.
Good idea. Yeah, we may do a rerun. So anyways, we'll see. We'll see what actually happens between here and Tuesday. All right. Well, that concludes today's podcast. So thanks, y'all, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Bye.